Oh, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Dominique Paterano. My students call me Dr. P. This is a webinar generally intended for and high school students, although college students will definitely get something out of it. Um, Third graders too, it might be a little bit young, but then again, maybe not. I'm not sure. I'll admit that I generally don't work with young elementary students. I have a couple who are older elementary, and maybe they too are being asked to do quite a bit more. So let me just advance. So again, welcome. As I mentioned, my name is Dominique Paterano, or Dr. P. My company is a tutoring, test prep, and college consulting service based in Riverdale, New York. But obviously, I'm online now, so I do have students both in Brussels and Israel as well, all around Westchester and Rockland County. The name of my company is Crimson Coaching because my undergraduate degree is from Harvard, and crimson was the color of Harvard. And I developed this talk because it is of such a pressing need. I was coaching a couple of students in April who one on one who one was in seventh grade, the other was in 10th grade, and neither of them really had a handle on what they needed to be doing every day in order to really survive distance learning. So, this is for those students who never really got a handle on that. Tonight's agenda will be I have obviously a PowerPoint. Students, if you're out there, if you'd like to take notes, you can feel free. This is also being recorded, and I will put it up on my YouTube. So if you'd like, you can get and the library usually posts it on their website too, so you can always access it either way after the talk. And I just like to, most of us know kind of best practices because we're all zoomed out by now. But if you could keep yourself muted during the bulk of the talk until we get to the Q&A, that would be great. And if you have a question while I'm speaking, you can throw it into the chat, and then I'll also take questions at the end, and you can be off mute then. And before we go, I would just again like to give three big thank yous. First to Emily Dowie, the amazing young adult librarian at Pearl River Public Library, who publicizes these talks, organizes them, gets the Zoom link ready. She's the person who sent you the email for the Zoom link. So thank you, Emily. Also, thank you, Pearl River Public Library, for sponsoring the talk. And last but not least, thank you all after a long week and many months of distance learning for showing up tonight. So, in my book, there are three principles for distance learning success. And I was mentioning this to Emily before, as we were waiting for folks to kind of come on in. That I also teach as an adjunct professor at Bronx Community College, and I always have one online and one in-person class every semester. And so I've been teaching online for about 5 years already. And so through that, I've kind of figured out there are three principles that really help students to succeed. The first and most important is the ability to manage your time. The second is maintaining motivation for the long haul, whether it's a semester in college or, I hope not, a whole year next year. And then caring for your body and yourself. And I kind of distinguish that body as like how we feel physically, and self is maybe how we feel emotionally. And It's my belief that all of these things are self-reinforcing. So in other words, if you're good at managing your time, you'll manage to take care of your body, and that will also, so if you're exercising and eating right, will also help you to maintain your motivation and so on and so forth. So it's sort of like a virtuous cycle. So we'll talk about managing time first. The absolutely first thing that students need to do while and this would actually be as well for elementary school students as for the other older grades that this talk was intended for. Um, if your teacher is not providing, so if you don't have a single teacher, especially, I would imagine elementary school teachers are often just saying students need to do this, that, and the other in a single day. But if they're not, or if you have many teachers like you do in middle, high school, and college, you need to figure out wherever your assignments are, whether it's Google Classroom or you're in college, it's Blackboard on a syllabus. You need to write down a list of your assignments for the day, and I recommend doing it in the order from toughest to easiest because obviously you want to do the toughest thing while you're still fresh. You should estimate how long it will take you to do each task. And then, especially at the beginning while you're doing this, double that estimation because students routinely underestimate how long it takes them to do things that most of them don't want to do. And then on a piece of paper, and I mean physically, write down a start and a stop time for each assignment, putting in a 10-minute break in between each assignment. So say you think your math will take you 20 minutes. You can write 9 o'clock to 9:20 math and then schedule a 10-minute break. So 10:20 to 9:20 to 9:30 break. And then your next schedule, say social studies, will start at 9:30, and if that's going to take you 45 minutes, 9:30 to 10:15 social studies. So you want strict start and stop times for each. And we'll talk about why that's important later, not just having a list with no times attached to it. And lastly, I recommend putting in a 30-minute exercise period in the middle of the day. Now, on a day like today, maybe you want to do that exercise first. It was really hot. I exercised at 10:30 and it was already really hot. But for most of the school year, you're going to be able to get away with a midday exercise break. And then I would probably do another 30 minutes for lunch at midday, just so that you can break up your day, say from 12 to 1 with a nice break where you're not doing any work. You should absolutely set alarms for all of these start and stop times, including your breaks. Oftentimes, students will say, oh, I can just set 9 to 9:20 math, and then they think they're going to remember to stop the break after 10 minutes because it's such a short amount of time. But of course, if they're playing Fortnite or whatever they chose to do on their break, they like that. And then so an hour or two has gone by, and now it's 11:30, and they only have finished one subject. If you're writing this down, and again, I really do recommend using old school paper and pen, cross items off, not just as you finish them, but as you submit them. That's actually the important part to getting credit. It's not enough to say, oh, I did it. You need to submit it. I would recommend, and this is the one where students really, and students, you can bring it on the criticism at the end of the talk if you want. I recommend that students keep their phone in airplane mode while they're doing their work. So whenever you start your work, if it's 9 o'clock and you generally finish at 2, I recommend keeping it off. But I realize some people can't go 5 hours without looking at their phone. So if you want to use your phone as your break, that's fine. At least do just the airplane mode while you're working. if you really don't think that you'll be able to work with a phone close by, like say your phone is close by and you don't think you'll be able to use it as a timekeeper, then I recommend locking it away somewhere in the kitchen if you're working in your bedroom, telling your sibling or your parent to keep it, and invest in a manual timer. And that looks like actually what you see on your screen there, that little, one of those little, old school alarm clocks that ring. I have a whole bunch of different timekeepers on the resources page of my website, which is crimsoncoaching.com, so that you can choose, and they all have links directly to Amazon. I don't get a cut, but there's lots of different ones that you can use. So that's just kind of for your daily work, but especially as you get into high school and college, many of your assignments won't be just due, assigned on the same day that they're due. You're going to have to work over an extended period of time on a single assignment. So what do you do then? Well, I really like the sort of desk blotter, old school, like you rip off 1 month at a time. They're huge and they have the whole month at a glance. And again, if you want to see a video for how I recommend using that, you can go onto my YouTube. But one thing you should add every week that's specific to distance learning is add a teacher check-in every single week. So you should be talking with your teacher or teachers at
Michael, come
least once
here.
a week. So I'm going to ask who's ever on 914 that's unmuted to please mute themselves, or to put your hand over the phone because I can hear you calling Michael. Okay. So thank you for doing that. 914-433-0636. Let me just get rid of this. So the reason why it's so important for you to maintain contact with your teacher, not just because, we need human contact, but also that human connection will actually help you to succeed in their class academically. And if they are not hosting a regular office hour where you can join them every week with other students, then you should definitely feel free to email them and ask them for even just a 15-minute one-on-one, so you could just chat and see how things are going. Oftentimes the teacher will share with you things that she's not able to share in a written format online, or even in a video format online. That happens with me and my online students all the time. I think I'm a really conscientious instructor, but there's just some things that happen one-on-one that don't happen in a video or written format. So the last reason you want to keep a monthly calendar visible where you could see it every day is that you can add a weekly treat and a monthly treat to your calendar. This is part of the way that you can maintain motivation. So I don't know, weekly treat might be, I don't know, in my world, an ice cream sundae, or a monthly reward could be maybe taking the whole weekend off and pampering yourself. And like a spa. Of course we can't go to the spa anymore, but you get the idea. You want to do something that you look forward to so that you could keep that motivation long term. So another way that you can maintain your own motivation is by identifying, writing down, and looking at your own goals every day. And it's really the viewing every day. You only have to identify and write them down once. The reason is because you will have to do many things in school, whether school is online or in person, that you don't necessarily want to do. And it will absolutely help you to do those things you don't want to do if you know that they are helping you to reach your short, medium, or long term goals. So I have actually a free ebook on my website, crimsoncoaching.com, that has a template, also like a worksheet for you. So you can feel free to go there at any point and download that. And that should help you to identify and write down your goals. Another way to maintain your motivation is to do fun things in your 10-minute breaks. So I'm just going to pause here for 1 second, and I'm just going to ask Emily, if you're still on the call, if you would call this number, the 914-433-0636,
Yeah.
because she's still not muted and it's super
Well, yeah,
distracting.
I'm gonna
I
see.
am muted.
You're
Saying
not,
I'm
because I can
muted.
hear
So,
you.
okay.
I
I'm
can hear you.
Um, Dr. P,
So
I'm gonna see if I can mute all, and then can you see if you can unmute yourself?
sure,
Well,
sure.
back.
Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Dr. P, can you unmute yourself?
Sure.
Okay, all right.
Perfect. Now she's muted. Great. Thanks. 914. I was just getting everything going on in my headset in the back of your house, so it was really distracting. So sorry. Thanks. So try to do some fun things in your 10-minute breaks, whether you like to, shoot basketball, take your dog for a walk, do a dance break, or check your phone. Make sure you're doing something that you like to do in between classes. Um, you should also, and this was that monthly calendar idea, schedule one bigger fun activity. So here I have painting. Maybe you're a kid who likes to paint. Maybe you want to watch I don't know, a Game of Thrones marathon or something like that for when you're finished with work. That's the key, though. You don't want to do it until you're done with work. And then those monthly and weekly rewards as well, especially if you've met a benchmark. So, for example, if you've got a big paper due, once you finish it on time, then you schedule that Game of Thrones marathon. Another key is setting up your environment for success. So what do I mean by that? Well, try to work somewhere quiet, and that also means without music. I mean, you could see me, I'm super sensitive to external noise, especially if I'm trying to focus on a presentation, but we actually all are. And what happens when there's noise outside is that our brains, and this goes actually for online learning and not online learning time, is that we're constantly having to switch back and forth, back and forth, back and forth between the noise and what we're doing. So try to work somewhere quiet. And as I mentioned, try to keep your cell phone in either airplane mode, or if you don't trust yourself, completely out of the room. You also want to adjust your lighting and seat height. So it's hard to tell now, but I'm actually, when I got to my online location, I'm actually not in my own house right now. So I got myself a desk, I got a light by a window, I got a chair. All of these things are going to help you to be super productive. And for students, uninstalling games on the laptop that you use for work, because it's just too tempting. And if you don't think you could do that, then I would literally recommend reinstalling it every night if you want to go play. Because if those games are on your laptop and you're using that laptop for distance learning, that is going to be a huge distraction. The last part, caring for body and mind, or body and self, I take from directly, shamelessly, from Dr. Dan Siegel from UCLA, who is a neuropsychiatrist and a very popular author who writes on the brain. He has a kind of metaphor that he calls the healthy mind platter. And he identifies 7 different things that all of us need, not just learners, but I would say especially learners, in order to have a healthy mind. And of course, a healthy mind is at the key to being a successful learner of any kind, whether that's distance or in person. So those are sleep time, exercise, focus, which is work, connecting time, which is socializing, playtime, which could be socializing, but it doesn't have to. Downtime could be with other people, but is often by yourself. And then time in. And time in is kind of identifying either spiritually or just relaxing, breathing to identify your feelings. I really believe that the healthy mind platter should guide whatever schedule you create. And we talked about schedule in the beginning. So now we're kind of coming full circle back to that. So the first alarm and last alarm that you should be hearing is one that is about sleep. Teens need, on average, 9.25 hours for sleep. So you may say, oh, no, no, I need less. If that is true, then you can abbreviate your sleep to 8 hours, but the minimum amount of sleep you should be getting every night is 8 hours as a teen. And you likely are not waking up at 6 a.m. to go get the bus anymore, right? So that's fine. If you are going to bed, if you are waking up, say, at 8:30, then I guess you could be going to bed at 12:30. I would actually love to see you going to bed at 11:30, but then that you should set another alarm for 10:30 for a 1 hour pre-bedtime no screen hour. And that's really screens of any time, even if they have night shift on them, because your body needs that time to, and your mind needs that time to disengage from the constant kind of adrenaline rush or endorphin rush that comes from interacting on the phone. So, in addition to the physical, which we talked about, exercising a half hour a day, which I think during quarantine is even more important than ever because we're not getting the movement that we usually get, say, walking to the bus or walking to school or even walking throughout the big schools that most of us go to, from class to class. We're not getting that anymore. And our body needs at least a little movement every day. So, the focus time, we've already talked about that. You're scheduling when you start and stop your work. And you should also be scheduling your playtimes, those rewards that I'm talking about. Obviously, after you've handed in all your work for the day, then the rest of the day can be playtime. But don't forget that you need that weekly time in at least. Some of us need it daily, or maybe you want it several times a day, as well as connecting with others and downtime. And downtime, a lot of students often like they say they want video games. Usually that's a little bit too energizing. That could be a playtime, but a downtime is, I think, something that is perhaps more calming than that. And you can link that up with your 1 hour of pre-bedtime, no screen hour as well. So if you're interested on all of this, the Healthy Mind Platter, I went into it in much more detail in the last webinar I gave for Pearl River Public Library, which was Taming Teen Anxiety. And that's also on Crimson Coaching YouTube. So you can definitely check that out there if you'd like to. So the last thing I would say, and this kind of pervades everything, it doesn't fall into one of those three principles of success that I talked about: managing time, maintaining motivation, and caring for body and self. But it kind of is necessary for all three, and that's the power of persistence. It is much easier to persevere at a task, to keep going at a task when you are well rested and when your mind is healthy, right? If you're, say, depressed or anxious, it is much more difficult to keep going at a task, especially one that you find difficult if you're sleep deprived, um, depressed, or anxious. So, all of those things in the healthy mind platter that I talked about are really key to persisting through distance learning. Another thing that requires some persistence is technical skills. A lot of times people in my generation think that everybody, say born after the year 2000 is just automatically a tech whiz. But I actually find with my students at the college level that that's actually not the case. They can be very good at certain things like Snapchat. Like, for instance, my nieces are 6 and 8. They're Snapchat whizzes. I can't really Snapchat that well, and they're always teaching me things on that. But when it comes to work type of technology, obviously, I'm a lot better. So we all need persistence to figure out the technical skills involved. And of course, you shouldn't have to feel like you're doing this alone. If you don't have those technical skills, speak up to your teacher or parent or counselor and ask for help, because usually there is a lot of help out there. And what I find among my own students is that students are usually too shy to ask for it. But once they ask for it, they find that help comes right to them. Um, there's also some other resources, both for, if I know we have some parents on the call. I have on the resources page of my website at crimsoncoaching.com. There's a reading list. For instance, Angela Duckworth's best-selling book called Grit: The Power of Passion and Perseverance. And then there's also lesson plans that I have actually created for elementary school students. I used my nieces as guinea pigs for that, and reading lists for middle and high school students who, now as the school year is kind of winding down, you might be interested, if we still can't get out and, lots of camps have been canceled. Well, what can students do? I always say that the best thing a student can do over the summer is read. So I know that there may not be any college students out there, but just in case there are, or if any of you are headed for college, where it is quite likely that in the fall you'll be taking classes online. And you may, as online learning and distance learning, the popularity and the quality of it improves. I think many college students will, during their 4 years, will take a college class online. So here's just a couple of notes for you. I recommend transferring all your assignments from every class into a single calendar as soon as possible. Okay, usually at the start of the semester, like back in the dark ages when I went to college, you would get a paper syllabus. Today, sometimes you are, but if you're taking the class online, you're not. Your syllabus will be online. You need to go through, and for every single class you're taking, transfer it all to one of those huge desk splatter calendars I was talking about, the monthly ones. Or if you're using a calendar like Google Calendar, transfer them all so that you could see your whole month for all 4 or 5 classes. What do you have to do? And figure out right away, if you've got 4 finals all on the same day, you might not be able to take those 4 classes. Or if you do want to take those 4 classes, you're going to need to figure out how to stagger your studying for those so that you can take those classes. And if you decide you want to switch, you can switch before the withdrawal deadline. Also really important, and this will go for high school and middle school students too. If we are back in distance learning in September, Try to see if you can join virtual clubs or esports. Try to somehow get involved in the life of the school. I think when we go back in the fall, schools are going to be much more ready if we're online to make a more school-like experience for you. And studies show that college students who do the best are students who are profoundly involved in the life of their school. And so if we are online, you need to really figure out how you'll be able to do that. And then finally, studies also show that students who find mentors, older students or professors or staff members who can help them through the academic, professional, and life challenges that are sure to come. So it's oftentimes what I find, and I felt this way too as a college student at Harvard. I mean, I did not come from a family that had a whole bunch of people who went to college, and they especially did not go to a school like Harvard. So I never went to my office hours that professors offered, and I really lost out the opportunity to develop mentors. And I always tell my students at the community college, come to my office hour. And you don't just have to go to talk about the class. Like, for instance, oftentimes students say, well, I'm doing well, I don't need to go. Find out what articles the professor has written, or what particular subspecialty, for in my case, I'm a historian, of history the professor might be interested in, or what made them interested in going to get a PhD in the first place. All of those things are possible kind of talking points that you can go into office hours with. And again, developing that relationship with a mentor, with a professor, will help you not just get through distance learning, but will help you after you graduate in getting internships, jobs, and maybe even into graduate school. So, if you'd like to learn more about any of this, again, I'm going to remind you, you're all invited to download my free ebook on goal setting at crimsoncoaching.com. You can also sign up for my monthly newsletter where I share tips like these on the bottom of my homepage. And follow me on Crimson Coaching, follow Crimson Coaching rather on Facebook to get news of upcoming talks as well as classes that I'm teaching. So, for example, if you feel like 45 minutes is not enough for you and you'd like a hands-on opportunity to put a lot of these principles into practice, that's exactly what I'm doing in the fall at the Center for Continuing Ed. It's in Mamaroneck, but the course will be online this fall, and their website is lmcce.org. But if you follow me on Facebook, you'll also get news of all my other courses, like my college essay writing course and other webinars that I'll be giving. And of course, as I mentioned, I'm also on YouTube where you can get short little lessons as well as see replays of longer webinars. So before I take your questions, I would just like to just remind you again, my name is Dr. P. Dominique Paterano, and my email, I invite all of you to email me if you think tomorrow, oh gosh, I thought of a question and I totally, just thought of a question at midnight and I wish I'd like her to answer it now. Email me at info@crimsoncoaching.com. And if you felt like this was a helpful talk, I would so appreciate it if you could go to Google and Google Crimson Coaching LLC, which is the name of my company, and scroll down to write a review. And you could just post a 1 or 2 sentence review saying, oh, I learned a lot, or whatever you'd like. So once again, thank you to the Pearl River Public Library and to Emily Dowie. I know sometimes people leave kind of piecemeal. Thank you to you for coming too, but I'd like to actually open this up for questions, feel there are so few of us that we don't need to be formal. I don't need to like call on you or anything. If you have a question, student or parent, please feel free to just unmute yourself and bring it on. No, nobody's got questions? Students, because I know some of you are students, how are you feeling about my proposition to potentially keep the phone out of your bedroom while doing your homework? Do you think you'll be able to do that? You could be honest with me. It's okay. Don't make me call. Okay, well, I don't want to. Oop, here's somebody in the chat. And I should have said too, if you feel more comfortable putting your question or comment in the chat, please feel free to do that too. I know not everybody likes their voice or face on screen. Um,
Oh, I just want to thank you so much, Dr. P. I think it's really helpful. Even for, I mean, I don't have a college age kid, but I have a much younger kid, but I've been really struggling to figure out how to keep myself organized and how to help them becoming more organized, because I think this may be a problem for more than 1 year or to be experienced by students coming up on the ranks. And so this is actually very helpful even for helping a much younger, like a middle school or elementary school student, to start taking control of their schedule while the parents have to work. So thank you very much. It's really
oh,
helpful.
oh, you're welcome, Judy. Yeah, and it's funny. I've had friends tell me that um, they're adults and they get something out of the time management tips as well. So they're not always just for kids either, because some of us adults need. I mean, it's a long haul. I know it's probably weird for the kids to think, but none of us adults have ever been through anything like this either. We're all going through this for the first time. So we need to remember, for instance, to how to motivate ourselves and sometimes to exercise and do things like that too, because adults don't have all the answers when it comes to global pandemics, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the sort of your suggestions about maintaining a schedule and moving everything into a single schedule, I think it sounds completely logical, but I think that was a great reminder that a simple thing like that will help a lot. So thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. Yeah, I'm often shocked. I realized this when I was asked by so I do a fair amount of test prep coaching, and there was a girl who I tutored, very smart girl. Um, got a perfect score, 36 on her ACT. Not because I'm such a great tutor. I'm pretty good, but I never guarantee a perfect score. She's just so bright. But she almost flunked out of her freshman year at one of the top liberal arts schools in the Northeast because she couldn't keep track of her assignments. So one of the first things, her mom called me in freshman year because she was on academic probation, and I was sort of her time management coach for the spring semester. And she never realized, as bright as she never realized that she should compile all of her assignments into a single schedule. And I'm happy to report she's now at the end of her sophomore year and she's still in school doing really well. So that's good. Um, so we have a couple questions in the chat. For children with learning disabilities, I would say there was a question about for children of learning disabilities, do I have other tips? I would say it really depends on what learning disability they have, right? There's a lot of them. So for kids with ADD, I would not necessarily make, like, say specifically, oh, it is ADD. Okay, great. So, for student, and it's also age dependent. So kind of say that students, by the time they are in 11th grade of high school, they should be able to work for 50 and then have the 10-minute break. And I know I just kind of generally said a 10-minute break for everybody, but usually students in middle school won't be able to sustain attention for 50 minutes. I would say for middle school kids, they may just be able to sustain attention for 20 or 25 minutes. And then hopefully every year they're kind of building up so that by the time they're in 10th or 11th grade, they can be working for 50 minutes at a time. I use what I call the 5-to-1 rule, and I'm actually writing a book on study skills right now. So I hope it'll come out soon, and you all can take a look at that. But I say for every 5 minutes you work, you should reward yourself 1 minute of fun. And I'm going to link this up with another mom's question who asked what type of rewards that aren't buying things. So I think especially for those 10-minute breaks or 5-minute breaks, however long they definitely should not be monetary in nature, or you shouldn't be buying anything. It should be, maybe giving them phones, giving them screen time. It should be, I would say, the best rewards are often things that the child chooses, but you can set some certain parameters. So you could say your reward has to be something that, we're not buying for you. Uh, it could just be, for instance, my little 6-year-old niece loves it when I give her a foot massage. So it could be maybe, your kid likes a foot massage or whatever it is, that could be a reward too. So you might want to actually enlist your kid in this, because the rewards that will really work are going to be the things that they themselves really want. So to get back to the question about time management tips for kids with ADD, I think the key is really having short chunks of work. So even if your child is in 11th grade, an 11th grader with ADD, might not be able, especially if they're unmedicated, may not be able to concentrate, and they may be able to just do 15 minutes. And if it's 15 minutes of uninterrupted work, uninterrupted by text, no Snapchat, no Instagram, none of that, if they can do 15 minutes of work, then they should get that reward of a 5 or 10 minute break. So I hope that answers the question. I would also say that in general, I once tutored a boy who had undiagnosed ADD, and he had a single dad, and I kind of brought the fact that he might have ADD to his dad's attention, and until he could get tested and get on medication and a diet regimen and so on, we would stop an hour. I was tutoring him for the independent school entrance exam. We would do some pretty physical breaks, like push-ups, sit-ups. I know it sounds silly that a middle-aged woman was doing this with a 12-year-old boy, but that's what we would do, because he really couldn't concentrate for more than 20 minutes at a time. And so my view is I would much rather get 20 good minutes and then a 10-minute break, and then be able to work for another 20 minutes and a 10-minute break and so on for 2 hours, so that over the course of that time, we got 80 minutes worth of work in, which was a really good amount of work for a 12-year-old. So I would say just, not trying to push that square peg into a round hole, so to speak. That kid was not going to sit with me for 2 hours. And it would be cruel for me as his teacher to expect that he would be able to work in the same way that a 16-year-old without ADD could work. So we made modifications and dad was really happy. So I think it worked out. And the kid also did well on his independent school entrance exam and wound up going to boarding school because of that. So it all worked out well for everybody. Other questions? I'm just looking at the chat to make sure that I didn't miss anything. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I just once again want to thank Pearl River Public Library and Emily Dowie for hosting, and you all for showing up on this beautiful, almost summer evening. Oh, it looks like maybe there's one more question. I'm just going to check it out. Oh, thank you, Judy, for coming. Yeah, I really appreciate everybody coming out. And I also, I did this. I love, there's a program called Canva. I actually have a distance learning checklist that I couldn't figure out how to post on my website. So if you email it to me, it looks really pretty. So I'll email it to you and you can print it out for your child and almost kind of like put it up near their desk. And hopefully it could be helpful. So again, thank you so much for coming, and I hope to see you at a future talk or class. Have a great summer.